Hello again, my friends. We're covering episodes 3 and 4 today. Don't worry, almost as much doesn't happen in them. Before we get into it, I think I should briefly recap the end of episode 1 and all of episode 2, because I skipped it last time, just to complain about the writing and performances in general. I can sum it all up like this. Due to an amazing alignment of poor judgment and unlikely coincidence, the bad guys didn't just narrowly get away with the secret map, they took a hyperdrive generator with them, so they could finish their intergalactic space ring thing.
Indeed.
But don't worry, Bored Green Woman tagged them with a tracking device, so that episode 3 could happen. And that's about it. However, I would like to comment on this particular moment from episode 2 and why it's extra dumb.
Don't you worry about their loyalty?
Not at all. The average worker doesn't care about the nuances of galactic politics. They have loyalty so long as they're paid.
And you?
I'm a businessman, General. My loyalty is to my investors. I'll leave the politics up to you.
Wow. Imagine if Disney had this guy's attitude towards their own investors, or maybe even their customers. On the day that episode 4 was released on Disney+, Disney's stock closed at $81.19 a share. Disney's stock has only been this affordable twice in the last 9 years. Not financial advice. Most recently in March 2020, when we thought the world was coming to an end, and then way back in 2014. Of course, if you take the consumer price index at face value, $1 in 2014 would be worth $1.29 in today's money. So how much higher would Disney stock have to trade before you could break even in real terms? Including dividend payments, which Disney suspended in 2020, maybe somewhere north of $90. I don't know exactly, the math is too hard for me. But considering that the stock rocketed up to an all-time high of $203.02 while everyone was stuck indoors, then came crashing back down to earth once our new reality sank in, I think the equation must look something like this. Disney plus low interest rates plus lockdown, minus lockdown plus high interest rates, divided by woke squared equals totally f***ed. Then to add insult to injury, we have this.
How can they still be loyal to the Empire?
It's not loyalty. It's greed.
I've seen Dave Filoni's net worth estimated to be between $4 and $10 million. That's pretty broad, but assuming the low end, were most of that wealth tied up in a house that he paid cash for, it would probably be a nice house. Personally, I don't care if he's living in a van down by the river. I don't need low IQ takes on capitalism in my Star Wars. That kind of anti-business attitude grows on trees, and I especially don't need to hear it from a Hollywood writer if it's working for a Fortune 500 company. It's like a guy that smokes crystal meth telling me that coffee is an unhealthy choice. With that financial insight out of the way, it's time for me to beg for charity. If you haven't already, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell your friends about me. That would make my day. So, episode 3 starts out with Ahsoka's ship flying through hyperspace on autopilot, while Ahsoka watches Ugly Droid give 20-something a fencing drill with some holographic Nerf bats.
Those skills alone will not be enough to defeat our enemy.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
No, she didn't. This guy learned the hard way.
There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you.
Luke lost his fun hand and spent the rest of his life doing the stranger. She spent 2 days in a hospital, at most. After Ugly Droid is done, Ahsoka takes a turn coaching 20-something, and we get a member berry.
I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
This scene drags on forever, and we learn nothing that we haven't been told already. 20-something still sucks at using the Force, but she's going to keep trying. Next, we get some spaceship porn to wake us up a little before Bored Green Woman goes into a meeting with the Burger King Kids Club, a committee of senators chaired by Chancellor Mon Mothball. Bored Green Woman wants permission to provide Ahsoka with some backup. The Kids Club is reluctant because they aren't convinced that the threat of Grand Admiral Thrawn's return is serious. Why are they not convinced? Because they're a bunch of dummies or something. It doesn't matter. The point is, Bored Green Woman is frustrated. It's time to act, or at least say the lines with a stern voice. But there are no white males for her to belittle, So she picks on the next lowest item in the progressive stack, an Asian male.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
No.
Just sat back and waited to see who came out on top?
What he doesn't say is, yes, that's exactly what you do when you don't care who wins. The awkward silence is broken by diplomatic black guy, trying his best to black mansplain the situation to bored green woman. Pragmatic woman seconds the motion to do nothing. Mon Mothball has no help to offer, so the decision is made. AHSOKA will get no backup, so the rest of episode 3 can unfold as planned. After the meeting that didn't need to happen is finished, we're introduced to bored green woman's child, Discount Noah Hathaway. He has green hair, he wants to be a Jedi when he grows up. That's it. Next, we're back on AHSOKA's ship. AHSOKA and 20-something sit down and talk about how 20-something still sucks at using the Force, but she's going to keep trying. AHSOKA tries to encourage 20-something by showing her that the Force is not only useful for combat, it can be used to drink box wine if it's far away and you don't feel like reaching for it. Next, we see AHSOKA sitting down in the cockpit with Ugly Droid. Ugly Droid and AHSOKA have another conversation about how 20-something still sucks at using the Force, but she's going to keep trying. Next, we see 20-something eyeing that faraway mug of wine. She keeps trying, but she still sucks. So she gives up and just drinks out of the mug that's closer. Then we're back in the cockpit. Bored green woman is on a Zoom call, but fortunately for us, the Wi-Fi drops out. Then they drop out of hyperspace because they're almost at the planet they were going to. Supposedly they drop out at a safe distance to avoid being detected, but it doesn't work because the bad guys are right there anyway. Darth Punkrock and that guy I mistook for a droid at first fly after them in some budget fighter craft that look a little bit like MiG-15s, but not as cool. If you want to actually be entertained, you can read all about the MiG-15 on Wikipedia. It's super interesting. The bad guys shoot at them a bunch, while 20-something mans the tail gun and sucks at it.
Hey, hold it steady!
Remember, learn to anticipate.
Now's not the time for a lesson!
What we need here is an acting lesson or two, but what we get is another unwanted member berry.
Got him! I got him!
Good work.
Woo! I got one!
Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Then, evil old woman tries shooting at them with her turbo lasers. If you don't know what turbo lasers are, they're just like regular lasers, except bigger and just as ineffective. They also burst into plumes of smoke if they don't hit anything. At least that's what the show is telling us. Then AHSOKA's ship gets disabled, but it's okay because evil old woman can't see them because they're right under her nose, literally. Then, AHSOKA does one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in Star Wars. Then Darth Punkrock breaks this record immediately by shooting at AHSOKA rather than the ship she's standing on. Then 20-something fixes the ship, but not before we get to see this. I could do a whole video about why the depiction of spacesuits and spacewalks should be avoided in some fictional universes, but I think this instance speaks for itself. AHSOKA gets back on the ship, and they fly into the atmosphere of the planet to try to escape. A bunch of floating space whales provide some dynamic terrain for the ships to fly around because clouds aren't interesting enough.
I've got an opening.
It was at this point that I became a little worried.
Where are they?
This is no cave.
No, thankfully they didn't go there. They didn't perform an inverse solo maneuver on one of these poor space whales. They just went and hid in some trees.
Shut the power down.
I protest. I have a lot of work to do.
Standard Jedi protocol.
I suppose that's true.
Shutting down.
I assume cutting the power is supposed to help them evade detection, but this raises a question. They want us to remember this, and this, but did they remember this?
There goes another one.
Hold your fire. There's no life forms. They must have short-circuited.
That's funny. The damage doesn't look as bad from out here. Are you sure this thing is safe?
Or this?
Yep, that's it. Dagobah. I'm not picking up any cities or technology. Massive life form readings, though. There's something a lot down there.
Are all these trees supposed to mask humanoid life signs? Are these budget fighters so cheap that their sensors can't tell the difference? It would be nice to know. Not that it would help. This is still boring and dumb. Darth Punkrock eventually figures it out. But instead of flying around for a while to see if she can spot this relatively large ship with a huge wingspan sitting in whatever clearing would be big enough to accommodate it, she decides to just fly away. Which is fortunate, because after a few minutes of sitting around, AHSOKA decides to turn everything back on, including Ugly Droid. Then Ugly Droid tells them what the audience has already figured out.
So it is a hyperspace ring.
Yes, but I have never seen one built on this scale before.
Then we see Darth Santa standing around Stonehenge. He tells a bunch of guys to go into the forest and look for the good guys. So they go, and Darth Santa continues to stand around, waiting for Episode 3 to end. Episode 4 opens with Ugly Droid trying to fix his chair. 20-something comes in and tries to at least get bored Green Woman on a Skype call, but the Wi-Fi is still down, so she decides to go outside and have another boring conversation with AHSOKA. When she gets outside, AHSOKA is just standing there looking at the trees suspiciously. They have a conversation about how they might be forced to choose between stopping Thrawn's return or finding that guy. 20-something says, whatever, we can do both. Ugly Droid comes outside to do a little work, and AHSOKA tells him to be careful out here. Those trees are looking spooky. Then she goes back inside the ship, and we learn that AHSOKA is so good at using the Force that she doesn't need a face mask to not be able to see anything. Then we see Darth Santa and Old Evil Woman standing around together at Stonehenge. Darth Punkrock tells them that they know where the good guys are. Darth Santa tells Darth Punkrock to go get them, so she goes. Next, we're back at AHSOKA's ship. Ugly Droid is still playing with sparks outside, while inside, 20-something reminds us that she's a disorganized slob. It's so tedious to watch her rummaging around in this handbag that even AHSOKA gets bored with it, so she finds whatever junk 20-something is looking for and gives it to her. Then we have another conversation about how difficult it will be if they have to choose between stopping Thrawn's return or finding that guy. At least they aren't talking about how 20-something sucks at using the Force, but why do we keep having different versions of the same conversations over and over again? My guess is that there have been many iterations of these scripts. The writer has tried sprinkling the same information in different places, trying to see where it works best, and the finished script ended up retaining more old material than it needed to. Or, the writer liked both versions of this conversation about making a hard choice, so he decided to not make a hard choice and just keep them both. Either way, it amounts to the same thing. The writing sucks. Nice job, Filoni. Smoke less meth. Then we're back outside, and Ugly Droid gets jumped by another droid. There's a droid fight, and eventually AHSOKA and 20-something notice that something's going on, so they check it out. Then they fight with a bunch of guys. After the fight, they stand around for a bit and talk. Ugly Droid tells them to stick together, just to warn the audience ahead of time that this is what they're not going to do. Then they run off to confront the bad guys. Next, we're with those happy spaceships again. It looks like Bored Green Woman and Discount Noah Hathaway are going on a little trip. Turns out, Bored Green Woman is going AWOL. She's going to go help AHSOKA with or without authorization. I think I should point out that this is a dangerous situation that she's going into, and she must know this because originally she wanted to bring the whole fleet with her. But since she can't, she's going to bring her young child instead. But don't worry, Diversity Squadron is going too, and it's more diverse than usual because it includes one white male. Then we're back on Stonehenge Planet again. Darth Santa and Evil Old Woman are cooking the big snitch over a gas stove. Darth Santa is a little worried that Evil Old Woman doesn't know how to cook snitch properly, but she tells him to have faith.
Faith? I lost that a long time ago.
We all did, buddy.
Witchcraft.
I don't know, it looks more like After Effects to me. Sort of a cheap imitation of what Fassbender was playing with in Prometheus. But this is where we're at now. A bad TV show borrowing from a bad movie, both of which being pale shadows of better source material. So AHSOKA and 20-something are running through the woods when they come across Darth Punkrock, who looks like she just finished tying her shoelaces. That guy I mistook for a droid is with her, and they're ready for a fight. So they fight. Meanwhile, Darth Santa and Evil Old Woman stand around waiting for the snitch to finish cooking. Or the download to finish. I'm not sure what's supposed to be going on here.
Care to explain this concept?
Chevron 6 encoded.
Oh right, that's what's going on. We go back to the fight, and we see that while Darth Punkrock and 20-something smack their lightsabers together, Ahsoka stands frozen in place, while that guy that I mistook for a droid goes into airplane mode. Then we find out that it's not a guy or even a droid. It's just some kind of boring particle effect. It's quite stupid, but the important thing is that now Ahsoka and 20-something have a chance to gang up on Darth Punkrock and finish her off. But they decide to do the smart thing and split up instead, just like Ugly Droid told them not to do.
You will regret this decision.
I certainly hope so. Next, evil old woman leaves and Ahsoka arrives. Darth Santa and Ahsoka have a little chat, then they take their time getting into a fight. The download continues as Ahsoka does some interpretive dance. Darth Punkrock and 20-something are still slapping each other in the woods. Ahsoka keeps trying to grab the snitch with her hand rather than using the Force. She can grab a mug of wine, she can grab a whole guy and throw him around, but she has to use her hand for this, and wouldn't you know it, it's burning hot. Must be those cheap visual effects. Darth Punkrock pulls a Batman on 20-something and runs away. When she makes it back to Stonehenge, Ahsoka is upset because she thinks 20-something is dead. She knocks Darth Punkrock out, but this distraction allows Darth Santa to get the upper hand and send Ahsoka off the edge of a cliff. 20-something witnesses this and tries to shoot Darth Santa, but that works about as well as you would expect. So then she's like, "Don't come any closer or I'll blow off my own hand." And he's like, "Don't do that. You might cause a life-changing injury. Try stabbing yourself in the hand with a lightsaber instead. Or better yet, give me the big snitch, so I can find Thrawn and you can find that guy. Does that sound fair?" And then she's like, "I don't know, I remember Ahsoka saying something about making a hard choice, or doing things the hard way, or something." And he's like, "That's a bunch of boulder dash. Ahsoka is a big dummy. Let's do things the easy way so episode 5 can happen." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So 20-something gives Darth Santa the big snitch, and then Darth Punkrock force chokes her, but unfortunately Darth Santa makes her stop. Then they all go up to the hyperspace ring. Bored Green Woman and Diversity Squadron show up just in time to get wrecked when the ring jumps to mega super light speed. Some of us probably expected that the ring was going to just stay in place while some ships were going to fly through the ring into hyperspace, but no, the whole ring goes into hyperspace. Okay, expectations subverted, I guess. Then Discount Noah Hathaway speaks for the audience.
Mom? I've got a bad feeling.
It's okay. Many of us have felt this way about Star Wars since before you were born. Even so, believe it or not, I have some nice things to say about this episode. I like Darth Santa quite a bit now. This actor can actually act, or at least his performance isn't being sabotaged by the director. I found myself sympathizing with him and his cause. With just an educated guess about his backstory, it makes a lot of sense. This guy watched the Old Republic vote itself into tyranny to stop a rebellion, and the Jedi Order went along with it. Then the Jedi got stabbed in the back by that tyranny. Then the people that voted the tyranny in rebelled against it. The tyranny was overthrown, but it was replaced with a carbon copy of the Republic that enabled that tyranny in the first place. Perhaps having lived through all of that, Darth Santa has arrived at a point of view that transcends the simplistic democracy good, tyranny bad paradigm. Why shouldn't they bring Thrawn back? The galaxy is run by short-sighted, self-involved weasels, and this regime is defended by morons. In a galaxy full of weasels and morons, a villain with a discernible goal and a code of honor is something to hang on to.
I gave her my word, and unlike her former master, I shall keep mine.
I also like Discount Noah Hathaway. He's cheerful and reasonably cute, and he's not afraid to ask the big questions.
Mom, how come I have to do what I'm told and you don't?
What?
It probably helps that he hardly appears and has almost no dialogue. Darth Punkrock has benefited in a similar way. She's made some questionable decisions, but sometimes she accomplishes what she sets out to do in a sensible way, and she has almost no dialogue. And at this point, if she's on Darth Santa's side, I'm on her side. Long live the Empire. The musical score is starting to turn me to the dark side too. In the first couple of episodes, I hardly noticed it. Now it's starting to participate in a helpful way. Towards the end of episode 4, I found myself daydreaming that I was Darth Santa, contemplating my plans. The sun was setting on this dreary planet, in this dysfunctional galaxy, and I was soon to depart for the hyperspace ring, to leave it all behind. I felt almost immersed in the show. The show had actually achieved some sense of atmosphere. And then they ruined it. I dare say AHSOKA is almost certainly not dead, at least not permanently, because we still have 4 more episodes to suffer through, and the show is named after her. Maybe it will continue to improve incrementally, maybe not. We'll see. If you want to hear me talk about it some more, hit the subscribe button and all the other buttons, and leave a comment if you feel like saying something. I would really appreciate it. Until we meet again, remember that while rebellion might sow the seeds of tyranny, and this might be a cycle from which there is no escape, good things can still happen for you. The Force is with you, and so am I.